It was one of those humid Charleston afternoons where the air feels like wet gauze against your skin. I just finished a grueling week of data entry at a soul-crushing insurance firm downtown, and all I wanted was a six-pack of cheap beer and some frozen pizza. The Piggly Wiggly on Meeting Street was the closest grocery store to my apartment, a relic from the 80s that smelled perpetually of bleach and overripe bananas. Rachel was with me. Rachel, who worked in the cubicle next to mine. We weren't dating, not really, but we'd been orbiting each other for months, a slow dance of lingering glances and accidental hand brushes near the coffee machine. Today she'd accepted my casual offer to grab groceries together with a smile that made my stomach flip. She was wearing a simple, thin-strapped sundress, the color of a summer sky, and it clung to her in a way that made it difficult to maintain eye contact. The fabric stretched taut across her chest when she reached for a box of cereal, and I found myself staring at the delicate line of her collarbone, the soft curve of her breast beneath the blue cotton. I had to consciously drag my eyes away, a hot flush of guilt creeping up my neck. It felt wrong, objectifying her like that in the middle of a brightly lit grocery aisle, but the thought was a reflex, intrusive and persistent. "See anything you like?" she asked, a playful lilt in her voice. My heart hammered for a second, thinking she'd caught me staring. Just the beer aisle," I managed, my voice cracking slightly. "The important stuff." She laughed, a sound that was somehow both light and husky, and the dress shifted again as she turned, hinting at the shape of her hips. I followed her, my senses hyper-aware of her. The faint scent of her coconut shampoo, the way her bare calves flexed with each step, the delicate straps of her sandals digging into the pale skin of her feet. I imagined what it would be like to trace that line with my finger, to feel the warmth of her skin. The thoughts were a welcome distraction from the monotony of my life, a buzzing undercurrent of desire beneath the fluorescent hum of the store. The place was mostly empty. An old man was arguing with the butcher about the price of chuck roast, and a young mother with a screaming toddler was desperately trying to placate him with a box of animal crackers. We weaved through the aisles, our cart filling with our separate lives. My beer and frozen food, her fresh vegetables and a loaf of artisan bread that made me feel like a slob. We ended up at the self-checkout kiosks. I hate those things. There's something deeply impersonal about them, the robotic female voice chastising you for an unexpected item in the bagging area. Rachel was at the machine next to mine, efficiently scanning her items. I fumbled with my beer, the scanner refusing to read the barcode. "Come on, you piece of shit," I muttered, swiping the bottle again. Finally, it beeped in acceptance. I finished and the screen prompted me for my payment method. As I slid my debit card, the machine whirred and chugged, and a single coupon printed from the slot. I almost crumpled it and tossed it in the little trash bin attached to the kiosk, but something made me glance at it first. It was a coupon for one free jar of Happy Tummy brand cream spinach and lamb baby food. A cold, sharp sensation, like a sliver of ice, slid down my spine. I stared at the small rectangle of paper. The logo, a cartoon baby with a grotesquely wide smile, was unmistakable. My mother had fed me that exact brand as she'd sworn by it, even when my father complained about the smell. I could almost taste the bland, pasty mush, see the little glass jars lined up on the kitchen counter of my childhood home in Columbia. I hadn't thought about that stuff in 25 years. "You okay?" Rachel asked. She was leaning against her kiosk, her shopping bag hooked over her forearm. The pose made the sundress pull across her thighs, and for a fleeting, insane moment, my brain superimposed the image of the smiling baby onto the smooth skin of her leg. The juxtaposition was so jarring I felt nauseous. "Yeah, fine," I said, forcing a laugh. I crumpled the coupon and shoved it deep into my jeans pocket. "Just, weird coupon, for baby food." Rachel shrugged, her shoulders smooth and tan. "Maybe the machine thinks you look paternal." I tried to match her playful tone. "God, I hope not." We left the store, the automatic doors sliding shut behind us with a soft hiss, sealing in the chill of the air conditioning. The wall of humid Charleston heat hit me like a physical blow, but it didn't chase away the chill I felt from that coupon. It felt like a secret, a little piece of my past that had been dug up by a machine that had no business knowing it existed. We walked towards our cars, parked next to each other in the vast, sun-baked lot. The heat made the asphalt shimmer. That's when I first saw him. He was just standing there, leaning against a dusty silver sedan a few rows over. A tall, gaunt man in a dark suit that seemed entirely wrong for the weather. He wasn't looking at his phone or smoking a cigarette. He was just staring, not at anything in particular it seemed, but his gaze swept across the parking lot, and for a split second, it felt like it landed directly on me. His face was long and pale, his hair a nondescript shade of brown, slicked back from a high forehead. There was nothing overtly threatening about him, but his stillness was unnatural. In a city that moved with a slow southern lull, he was a statue. "You know that guy?" I asked Rachel, nodding subtly in his direction. She followed my gaze, squinting in the bright sun. "Who, the guy in the funeral suit?" "No, weird, must be melting." We got into our respective cars. As I started my engine, I glanced in my rearview mirror. The man was still there, in the exact same position. But now his head was tilted, just slightly, as if he were listening to a faint, distant sound, and he was looking directly at my car. I shook it off. Just a weirdo. Charleston was full of them, a mix of ancient money, art students, and tourists who had lost their way. I pulled out of the parking lot, giving one last look in the mirror. He hadn't moved. That should have been the end of it. A strange coupon, a stranger in a parking lot. Point 2 disconnected, mildly odd occurrences. But that night, as I sat on my couch with a cold beer, the crumpled coupon on the coffee table seemed to glare at me. I flattened it out. "Happy Tummy." The logo was exactly as I remembered. I pulled out my phone and Googled it. The brand had gone out of business in the late 90s. My mother had stockpiled it, buying cases from a discount grocer before they disappeared from shelves for good. How could a modern, automated kiosk print a coupon for a defunct product? The rational part of my brain, the part that dealt with spreadsheets and data all day, offered weak explanations. A glitch in the system. A prank by an employee? But it felt flimsy. The coincidence was too specific, too personal. The next day was Saturday. I slept in, the strange events of the previous day softened by sleep and the bright morning light filtering through my blinds. I decided to walk down to a coffee shop on King Street to get some work done. The air was still thick, but a breeze coming off the Cooper River made it bearable. I found a small table outside, opened my laptop, and proceeded to do absolutely nothing for about an hour, just watching people go by. That's when I saw the man again. He was on the other side of the street, standing in the shade of a live oak tree, its Spanish moss hanging like gray beards, same dark suit, same unnerving stillness. He was looking into the window of an antique store, but his reflection in the glass was turned toward me. I could see the pale oval of his face in the warped, old glass. My fingers, poised over the keyboard, went cold. It couldn't be a coincidence. Charleston isn't that small. I tried to act normal, sipping my now lukewarm coffee, but my heart was thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I kept my eyes locked on my screen, the words blurring into meaningless symbols. After what felt like an eternity, I dared to glance up. He was gone. The space under the oak tree was emptied. A wave of relief, so potent it felt like intoxication, washed over me. I'd spooked myself. It was probably a different tall, pale guy. My mind was just connecting dots that weren't there. I packed up my things, my hands trembling slightly, and decided to head home. As I crossed the street, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Rachel. *Hey, weird question. Did you see that guy again? The one from the parking lot? The blood drained from my face. I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, people brushing past me. I typed back, my thumbs clumsy. Why? Her reply came a moment later. I swear I just saw him outside my building, just standing there. Freaked me out a little. The relief I'd felt evaporated, replaced by a cold, solid dread. It was him. And he wasn't just following me. I called her. "Where are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. At home. I was about to go for a run, but I saw him from my window. On the sidewalk across the street. He was just standing there, staring at my building. Her voice was tight, a thin wire of fear running through it. "Did he see you?" "I don't know. Maybe." I ducked away from the window pretty fast. She paused. "Do you think he's following us?" "Why would he be following us?" "I have no idea," I said, and it was the truth. "Just stay inside. Lock your door. I'm coming over." "Okay," she said, her voice small. "Hurry." I practically ran the 10 blocks to her apartment building, a modern complex tucked behind an older, more historic row of houses. My mind was racing, trying to find a logical thread. The coupon. The man, they had to be connected. But how? It was insane. I buzzed her apartment and she let me in immediately. She was waiting for me in the hallway outside her door, wearing running shorts and a tight athletic tank top. Her skin was glistening with a light sheen of sweat, or maybe it was just the humidity. The sight of her, so vibrant and real and scared, sent a confusing jolt through me, a mix of protective instinct and that old raw desire. I noticed the way the thin fabric of her top clung to her torso, the sharp intake of her breath making her chest rise and fall rapidly. Her legs, powerful and toned from running, seemed tense, ready to bolt. I wanted to pull her to me, to feel that solid warm body against mine, to assure both of us that we were safe. The impulse felt grotesquely inappropriate given the circumstances. "Did you see him?" she asked, her eyes wide. "No, he was gone by the time I got here." We went inside. Her apartment was neat, smelled like lavender and clean laundry. It was a stark contrast to the chaotic mess of my own place. She locked the door behind us, engaging the deadbolt with a solid, final thunk. "I'm probably being paranoid," she said, pacing over to her window and peering through the blinds. "It's a public street. He could have just been waiting for someone." "But you felt it too," I said. "The way he was just standing there. It wasn't normal." She turned to look at me, her expression serious. "Yet I felt it." I told her about seeing him on King Street. I didn't mention the coupon. It felt too stupid, too trivial, and too deeply personal. How could I explain that a grocery store coupon had somehow triggered this? We ordered Chinese food and tried to watch a movie, but the tension was a third presence in the room, sitting between us on the couch. Every time a floorboard creaked in the apartment above, we both flinched. Our conversation was stilted, forced. My eyes kept drifting to her. The way she tucked her feet up underneath her on the couch, her painted toenails peeking out. The delicate line of her ankle. I found myself imagining what it would be like to kiss the inside of her wrist, to feel her pulse hammering against my lips. The fear had sharpened everything, made my senses raw. The attraction I felt was now tangled with a primal nervous energy. It was no longer just a daydream. It felt like a last grasp at something normal, something human, in the face of this creeping, inexplicable wrongness. When it got dark, I decided I should go. I didn't want to, but hovering in her apartment felt like admitting we were under siege. "Text me when you get home," she said at the door. Her hand rested on my arm, a brief, warm pressure. "I will." I walked home quickly, my head on a swivel, scanning every shadow, every parked car. The humid night air felt heavy, oppressive. My neighborhood, usually so familiar, seemed alien. The grand, historic houses with their piazzas and tall windows felt like they were watching me, their dark eyes harboring secrets. I saw no one. The streets were quiet. When I got to my apartment building, I fumbled with my keys at the main entrance. The lobby was dark and silent. I took the stairs two at a time, not wanting to be trapped in the slow, creaking elevator. My apartment door was locked. I let myself in, flipping on the lights, and did a quick, paranoid sweep of the small rooms. Empty. I deadbolted the door and leaned against it, letting out a long, shaky breath. I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water, and that's when I saw it. Sitting in the middle of my cheap, laminate countertop, right next to the microwave, was a single, unopened jar of Happy Tummy cream spinach and lamb baby food. The world tilted. My breath caught in my throat. I stared at the jar, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. The glass was cool and smooth. The label was faded, the colors washed out from age, but the smiling baby was there, its grin now seeming malevolent. I hadn't bought this. It couldn't be here. This brand hadn't been manufactured in over 2 decades. I backed away from the counter, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. My eyes darted around the kitchen, looking for any other sign of intrusion. Nothing was out of place. The window over the sink was locked, the door had been locked. How? I snatched the jar from the counter. It felt heavy, solid, real. I turned it over in my hands. There was no price sticker. No dust either. It was as if it had materialized out of thin air. My first instinct was to call the police. But what would I say? "Officer, someone broke into my apartment and left me a jar of discontinued baby food. They'd think I was insane or drunk. Probably both." I thought about calling Rachel, but I didn't want to terrify her even more. This was aimed at me. This was personal that I ended up putting the jar in a plastic bag and shoving it to the back of the highest shelf in my hall closet, as if physically hiding it could make it less real that I didn't sleep that night. Every tiny noise, the hum of the refrigerator, the groan of the old building settling, was the sound of an intruder that I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the image of the gaunt man's pale, still face burned onto the back of my eyelids that I thought about Rachel, the smooth skin of her back, the fear in her eyes, the way her lower lip trembled slightly when she was nervous. The two images, desire and dread, swirled together in my head until I felt sick. The next morning, Sunday, I was a wreck. I drank coffee that tasted like ash and tried to piece things together. The coupon, the man, the jar, they were a chain of events, but I couldn't see the links. Why baby food? Why me? I needed to get out of the apartment. I needed to feel the sun, to be around people. I decided to go for a drive, to clear my head. I ended up at Waterfront Park, walking along the Battery, watching the sailboats on the harbor. The normality of it all was a bomb. Families were taking pictures, couples were strolling hand in hand. For a little while, I could almost pretend the last 2 days were a bad dream. I found an empty bench overlooking the water and sat down, closing my eyes, letting the breeze cool my face. When I opened them, he was there. He was sitting on a bench about 50 yards away, directly in my line of sight. Same dark suit. He wasn't looking at the water. He was looking directly at me. His hands were folded neatly in his lap. His expression was blank, utterly devoid of emotion. A jolt of pure, undiluted fear shot through me. It was the same feeling as touching a live wire. My body went rigid. I couldn't move, couldn't look away. We sat there, locked in that silent, horrifying stare for what felt like an eternity. The sounds of the park, the laughter, the seagulls, the lapping water, faded into a dull, distant roar. There was only him and the terrible, silent knowledge that passed between us. He knew about the coupon, he knew about the jar in my closet, he knew things about me that I had forgotten myself. He slowly, deliberately raised one hand and pointed, not at me but past me towards the city. Then he stood up, turned, and began to walk away, his movements fluid and unnaturally precise. I sat there, frozen, for several minutes after he